How's it going?
Hey man, how's it going? Good, how are
You
you?
having a good day?
Doing good, how are you?
Doing good.
Great.
So I have a few questions for you asking, so you are a senior maintenance engineer at Dow Chemical?
Yes.
How long have you been doing that?
Started in February 7th of last year, so a little over a year.
What drew you to be an engineer?
So, long story short, I used to do some like leak detection work at an industry called Indorama. Now there's formerly known as Huntsman, but my dad worked out there as a mechanical engineer. So I got to, go have lunch with him every now and then, like right after I graduated high school. And so doing that, I got to see what he did. And he's always been an engineer, crafty, good with his hands, good with his brain.
So through your dad, you got interested in engineering?
Yeah, for sure.
Were you good in math in high school?
I didn't know that I was good at math in high school. I kind of, it was something that I just did, but then once I got actually into Lamar, I was like, hey, I kind of enjoy actually doing math. Yeah,
See, that's what I felt when I was in high school. I was always good, especially with algebra. It was always like, came easy to me. So I was like, okay, engineering. And that's what my grandpa told me. He's like, you should be an engineer. You're good at math. I was like, he's right. Maybe I should.
Yeah.
Came to Lamar. Well, I came from Coons, right? Coons High School. And, I mean, we kind of had good math teachers, but like that's the point where I was ready to go to Lamar. Straight up Cal 1 honors class is my first class. Blew my mind. Like they were talking about the unit circle, never got taught the unit circle.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what is this? And then a bunch of other stuff, derivatives and just like stuff that I haven't been presented yet, and really blew my mind. But after a couple of years, I feel a bit more confident in math. Like I thought I was good at math.
You start seeing those holes that weren't filled, and you're like, well, I didn't learn about any of this, but it's also good, right? You get a good learning experience, and you get like the thrill, I guess, of digging into something, figuring it out, trying to understand what the unit circle actually is.
Yeah. So with that being said, what would you consider the greatest skill or trait to have as an engineer, or something I should try to strive for?
Man, I think learning knowledge is very important, right? Like learning how to study, how to research something, because like you said, just like when you go from high school to college, there's some things you didn't know in math, right? But everyone else already knew. So the same thing when you graduate here is like, it's not necessarily the knowledge that you get, that's also very important, but it's also the will to understand that you have to study and research even whenever you graduate. So I think that's probably probably the most important skill that I've brought with me is like the will to like, all right, I don't know this, I need to figure out what this is and how it operates.
Basically, work ethic.
Yeah, exactly.
We strive to do a lot of work and really understand information. So along with internships, what would you consider to be the best way to connect with businesses to, I guess, get familiar with them or even get internships?
Yeah, so internships are tricky, right? There's some places that if you know somebody, it helps obviously. But the best thing that I came to know is apply everywhere. Like if you got a chance to apply for somewhere, have a resume ready, look up certain tips and tricks on how to filter out resumes on the on electronics basis, and apply everywhere. And then if you have the opportunity, if you're applying somewhere now or something else like that, try to reach out to somebody, try to get a contact for somebody who would do that hiring, and go either try to find a way to go talk to them, you send an email to them, make some kind of communication to them to say, hey, look, I'm here and I'm interested. And that goes a long way, because coming from my previous job that was before I was at Dow, I was working at Scout Controls, and we went to a job fair that we got 100 resumes. So it's like, well, which one of those stood out? That's like, well, which one of the ones do you remember, right? So it's the ones that
want to keep on coming at you.
Keep coming at you, and then you're like, hey, can I have your email address? And I'm gonna email you later on, ask you the status of it. Like those are the people you're gonna remember. So especially in the engineering field, especially in Southeast Texas, it's very competitive. There's a lot of opportunity.
That's what I assumed.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of opportunity, but it's also very competitive. So being somebody who stands out to other people will probably give you a better chance than somebody who just submits a resume and then just moves on.
But a few friends of mine have also said, just go, just put effort in, and then if they see that you're interested and see that you want to get internship and really know their business, they'll pick you. They'll pick you for sure. And I have the same person who's taking the same class as me who has an internship this summer. All he did was go. So I could have been in the same boat as him and just went and should have went. But
yeah, and most industries, they understand that if you're an intern, I mean, they know what year you are whenever they hire you. They'll ask you what year you're in, right? So I mean, a lot of people who go to engineering at a smaller stage may have no industry experience whatsoever, right? But again, that goes back to your other question is like, what's the most important characteristic? Is like the willingness to learn.
Yeah.
And those internships are huge because they lead to potential jobs in the future where if you do such a good job, they're like, when you graduate, okay, then we'll try to make a spot for you when that time comes,
Yeah.
you know, or even maybe next summer they'll see your resume like, oh, this guy was great last summer. Let's go ahead and hire him again as an intern, and we'll just keep doing that until he ends up, you know, graduating, and we can use him for our company. So it's the willingness to work. I would say jump on in as soon as you can, and then as long as you have the willingness to work, I think any company would be glad to have you.
So another question I have is, so for Dow Chemical, what gave you that? What was the process of getting a secure spot at Dow Chemical?
So just process of engineering, just the process of just interviewing and applying places. So at the time, I was working for Scout Controls, which is a great company. Loved working there. It just seemed like there just wasn't much growth. There wasn't really anything else I could do while I was there, and I felt like I had a lot more skills that I wanted to try out and learn and refine.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the time, I was like, well, I need to go somewhere else. So it was just a matter of same thing with your internships. Is I looked around, I was like, what would I want to do? And so a lot of these industries, like maintenance engineer, some reliability positions, and doing some research on those positions, what do they require, what do they look like, then saying, yes, I want to go for these positions, and then just do the same thing I did with the internships, just applying places, finding contacts, trying to reach out to people, you know, preparing for interviews. When you have an interview, don't just, you know, think that you can go on there and just walk out of the interview like, oh, I got this, you know, like look up questions that the people potentially ask, and just being prepared goes a long way.
So internships and college is really the biggest thing to really get the process.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and once people look at that too when they're like, okay, well, you may have been an intern for 3 summers, but you have industry experience, and that goes a long way. In a lot of
That's probably the biggest thing. I feel like book work and knowing knowledge is a good thing, but I know that a lot of companies just want hands-on experience.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you don't come into the industry with experience of some kind, then they're gonna question if you're gonna be a good asset to the team.
Yeah, and look at how much better your resume would look, right? If you have
exactly.
Yeah, like at least 2 years of experience being an intern, as well as a recent graduate from Law University. It's like that's gold to life.
Yeah. So another question I have, and I've been really curious about this. I haven't talked to many mechanical engineers, but just a few, and I want to know, like in your job at least, what technologies do you use to, I guess, assist you when, I guess, because you're a maintenance engineer, so you solve problems, whatever, with machinery and stuff. What technologies do you use to solve this?
So when you mean technologies, you mean in like actual maintenance, like technologies, or as in like technologies, like for planning, scheduling, stuff like that?
Kind of both in a way, because like, so I have a few engineers that I've talked to say that Excel is a huge thing in the engineering industry, and a lot of people have told me that it's just Excel. And I don't want to believe that, because I'm learning all this stuff and people are telling me, oh, it's just Excel, just use Excel, learn Excel, and then you'll be good as an engineer. I don't want to believe that, but that's why I wanted to ask like a professional.
Yeah, I think Excel is really important, because there's a lot of companies that work out of Excel for everything.
That's what I
don't think it's a great way of doing it, because you know, Excel has limitations just like every other programming does.
Mm-hmm.
But there's another program that a lot of people work on. It's called SAP, and that's like they do scheduling, planning, organize equipment, it's things like that. A lot of companies use SAP and work out of SAP. At least from my standpoint, my father, who also worked at a paper mill and then worked at Indorama, which was Huntsman back in the day, and then now works at a different paper mill. Every single one of those areas use SAP, and on top of also using Excel. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just, those are probably the 2 main tools that you can probably focus on and learn how to use and try to understand. But outside of that, there's some smaller ones here that are like kind of random. But again, that's just going to go up with people's learning process, because each company is going to use something different.
Okay. I thought I was going to ask you too. I was like, do you actually use Excel? Like, what's your process? And like, well, what are other businesses' processes using Excel? Do they use like, do they use it for? I really don't know actually. Like, I know there's standard deviation and stuff like that with some that we use in physics. Yeah. But I didn't know what exactly because when people tell me it's just Excel, and I can't put in my head like, what do you do specifically with Excel for engineering?
So there's a lot of stuff you can do with Excel. Like Excel, it does have limitations, but there's quite a bit you can do. There's you can do scheduling and planning. What we have, like at work, we have an interactive work schedule where it's shared across the board, and whenever people get completed with work, they'll go in there and say, this is 50% complete. So they report on it every day to say where their job's at. So, you know, we may have a task list of, all right, build scaffolding, strip insulation, do this, and then, but we have to do them in that order, right? Because if the insulators are going to strip insulation, you have to have scaffolding built, right? So everyone has access to that, so the way they can look at it, they can all share it, and they say, okay, I'm 50% complete. Well, then that will, sometimes they can set it up where when that says 100% complete, we'll send an email out to the next work group, say, this job is complete, you can now start your phase. And then that person does 100%, and when that gets completed, same thing. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. We also do a lot of inspections. So a lot of our inspections, we have a whole list of inspections. Well, someone has created where they'll put like little hyperlinks and stuff in there. So your link will say, hey, this needs to be clean and coated, this paint needs to be painted.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you go and click on that link, and it'll actually bring you to like a standard for cleaning and coating, and another link will bring you to the generate a work order to say, hey, this needs to be created. Say you need to go clean and paint. Because Excel also works with like SAP and some other stuff. They kind of integrate.
Collaborate a little bit. Yeah. So it seems like Excel really is a good organizer for most like the schedules and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So that's pretty nice.
Yeah, most industries going to have a lot of tools for you, right? Like we have an Excel spreadsheet that actually has all these formulas and stuff on it that you literally put some numbers in and it'll start generating stuff for you.
Nice.
Yeah. But it gets a little bit complicated because there's like, probably 100 numbers you got to put in on this thing.
Yeah.
But you got to figure out what information, what's your yield stress, what's your Young's modulus of the certain bowl. Like there's a bunch of information you got to put in there to say this is what your torque value is going to be, and then here's how many passes you make. On your first pass, you do this. Second pass, you do this. So that's just one example of kind of how it is there's a process where they create a work order, they provide it to us, and then we basically just do the work on an engineering standpoint. I think a lot of your business can be really successful. Your career can be really successful if you lean on other people, not necessarily to do your job, but to ask them for support and not just try to do things on your own.
So just having a good work environment.
Yeah.
Is really the biggest thing.
Yeah, and being open to understanding things and being open to other people's opinions. Just because you may think you have the right answer, other people that have been there for years may know something better.
Yeah. I feel like with that too, you learn more as you go on, or whatever.
Yes.
And through the years.
Oh, absolutely.
So the last question I have to close the interview here is, I know you talked about a lot about work ethic is a good trait to have, but as far as life advice, what would you tell me, going through Lamar University for mechanical engineering, what life advice would you have for me as I continue through the years?
Yeah, we kind of talked about work ethic and stuff like that. I think, especially in the career field, this is kind of sad, but it's true. If you want to be known as somebody who's a good worker and somebody who's that can be dependable, is just showing up and doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
Like that sounds cliche and simple, but it really is. I mean, you'd be surprised in the industry nowadays of how many people just either don't want to do work, who want to pass off the work to somebody else, or somebody who wants to, ask somebody for help, and as soon as they go to help them, they're like, okay, you can do it. They try to pass that work off. But somebody who takes the jobs that nobody wants, somebody who takes the extra initiative, those are people that are more valued in the company than people that, rather just push off the work and just try to get by day by doing as little as possible. And I guess it goes through the same thing with Lamar, right? Just, going over and above, studying extra, doing those extra things, like that's going to help you out in the long run. I wouldn't say I use everything that I learned at Lamar, but Lamar and studying for engineering, being in engineering in school taught me to study, taught me to investigate, it taught me to look and think, okay, if I don't know something, I need to figure out how this works, how this operates, how this equation works out, right? Like versus just, like we talk about Madrid, right? It gives you a formula sheet. Don't just take those formulas and be like, okay, I'm going to try to use these. Understand the formulas.
Why they are.
Yeah, why they are what they are, what each one means, how they get to that point, how can you derive other things from the same formula, like expand your knowledge on one thing above and beyond what the typical is. So that'd be my advice.
So as far as like as a student, did you have any like tips of any sort that helped you out throughout college?
Not really. Just group studying I think helps the most. Is and sometimes maybe finding a group that's maybe not your buddies and friends, because sometimes that can get distracting. Sometimes because you get together, start talking about football stuff, and then it's like you study for an hour, but then you do everything else for 2 hours, and it's like, okay, well shoot, where'd you go? So, but I think a lot of that can be avoided. Doing stuff like this where you come sit in a room where you don't really have that access to that stuff, or say, hey guys, like.
We got stay locked in.
Yeah, we got a big exam coming up, just lock in, and maybe bringing somebody else into the group who maybe is not as familiar with everybody else, so that kind of keeps you a little bit more accountable, and maybe somebody who may know a little bit more than the little group that you have. So, and I think another piece of advice is talk to your professors. I think that was a big thing that people didn't do is, you know, if they disagree with the grade or there's something else, they would grumble, get mad about it, but they would never go talk to the professor. But there's been a couple times where I went to talk to a professor where they want to help you learn. And so
For sure.
they'll say, hey, look, let me show you what you did wrong. So next time when this comes up, or maybe on the final or something else like that, you'll be more prepared for it.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's been some times I went to talk to a professor and it's like, oh, I marked this wrong, but it shouldn't have been wrong. I'm gonna give you some points back for that.
And you wouldn't have known that unless you would have.
Exactly. You know, I could have sat around there and complained and whined to everyone around me, all my friends around me, and everyone else in the class,
Mm-hmm.
and then just, you know, would have lost out on 10 points on an exam because I didn't actually go talk to the professor. So yeah, just having that communication and like kind of building a bond with a professor is like very, very useful because if they know you're there and they want to learn,
Mm-hmm.
you want to learn, they'll be more than willing to teach you. At Lamar, having that small, intimate, 50 people, maybe max, maybe 25 people in a class,
Yeah.
Having access to you, go to your teacher's office during his office hours, be like, hey, I need help with this, super valuable, and I would definitely utilize as much as possible.
All right, I think that's it for the interview. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, no problem, man.
All right.
Great.